Good evening. I'm Kelly Wright. Thanks for joining me as we spend this next hour together. I do sincerely hope that you're safe and well, taking care of yourself and your family because you matter. My opening observation tonight, human trafficking. It still exists and persists throughout the world. It's become a problem in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic. Case in point, the United Nations points out that it is putting the world under enormous strain. That is the COVID-19 pandemic, affecting the lives of everyone. But when it comes to human trafficking, well, criminals are adjusting their business model to this new normal created by the pandemic, especially through the abuse of modern communication technologies. At the same time, COVID-19 impacts the capacity of state authorities and non-governmental organizations and police in dealing with COVID-19 as well as human trafficking. In fact, most importantly, the pandemic has exacerbated and brought to the forefront the systemic and deeply entrenched economic and societal inequities that do exist among the root causes of human trafficking. But can one person make a difference? Well, Monica Watkins is one of those people trying to make a difference by stopping human trafficking, making people more aware of it. We're going to talk to her later on in this show about the effort that she's making. I should point out that Monica Watkins was a top model with Elite Models. And as a result of her traveling the world and seeing the inequities that do exist, she created Beauty for Freedom. Can one person make a difference? You be the judge after watching her story later in this show, because she understands that it takes courage and compassion and care to make a difference. And those are my opening observations. So my first guest tonight is Lorraine Cochran Johnson. She is the DeKalb County Commissioner in Georgia. And the reason why she is on tonight is to talk about those school reopenings taking place in Georgia. It's good to have you on tonight, Lorraine. Tell me how important this is from your perspective of watching schools reopen and in the midst of this pandemic that we're going through.
Well, Kelly, first of all, it's always a joy to be here, to have a conversation with
Thank you.
I personally am a lifelong learner. I value education, but most importantly, I understand how much and how critical education is to our young people. Here in Georgia, in DeKalb County, we have decided to begin our school year on August 17th virtually. Our students will not report to the classroom, not in DeKalb County, but there are many surrounding counties, including Gwinnett, that will have in-class instruction. We continue here in Georgia to be a state that is at a very critical level as it relates to known cases and the rise of COVID-19. So for me, I have great concern with children, whether grammar school, college, all levels, that are returning to classroom environments. So for lack of better words, what many jurisdictions are facing is what I consider a slippery slope.
Your concern is very valid, considering what's happened in Chatham County, where there's been a COVID case there of a child. Also in other counties throughout Georgia where the cases have been rising. But let me read something to you from your governor, Brian Kemp, who said on Monday that reopening schools in the state went really well, except for photos shared online showing crowded hallways, which is something you would anticipate and expect in a school environment anyway. But then he went on to state that, and I'm quoting him here, I think quite honestly, this week went real well, other than a couple of virtual photos, but the attitude from what they're telling me was good. Now, is he really grasping all the risk factors in so many kids going to school and not practicing good social distancing?
Well, I think sometimes, when I look at his statements, And I view personally the totality of the circumstances. I think there is a detachment between what he sees as acceptable and good and what I would say the vast majority of people within the state of Georgia and in DeKalb County may see as good. I remember actually reading those statements that you just quoted. And I can say that here in DeKalb County, Lakeside High School has had several student athletes test positive for COVID. So what we're dealing with at this point, I think he's missing the point. You know, for many of us, and I receive tons of emails on a weekly basis from parents who are extremely concerned. I think that the photos of the students and the lack of social distancing is honestly just the beginning of what you will see. It is extremely difficult, Kelly, to socially distance children and young people. It is extremely difficult. And you will see that, you know, all numbers show that the greatest rise of COVID cases are amongst our young people now. So the photos are very alarming. I will not say, because many teachers have decided, no, I will not return to the classroom. You have parents who have taken the position that I would rather homeschool my child than send them back into a traditional classroom setting at this time. So I think his statements are at best an attempt to calm, but I do not think it speaks to the core of what I have experienced as an elected official.
Yeah, and admittedly, everyone wants to acknowledge the fact that schools do need to reopen at some point, but as DeKalb County has chosen to do, they're doing it virtual. On the other side of the break, I'd like to talk to you about that because I know you have some concerns about the digital divide and what that may do adversely to marginalized students who are living in underserved communities and they don't have the access to get to that virtual situation in a classroom. Back with more of Lorraine Cochran-Johnson, DeKalb County Commissioner, after the break. Welcome back to the program. So we've been talking about schools reopening, and we're talking to DeKalb County Commissioner Lorraine Cochran-Johnson. And Commissioner, we were talking in the first part of the show about the fact that schools have opened in so many locales throughout Georgia, and you're facing the opening as well, although you would do it virtually. Now, in choosing to go virtual, that means a lot of students will be able to sit down at home, log on, and get their classroom instruction.
Yes.
However, what impact or what lack will that provide for students who don't have access to going online with a computer?
Well, you know, when we speak about the digital divide and the difference between socioeconomic backgrounds, it's very real. A Pew study recently indicated that 82% of Caucasian and white homes have access to internet, with the vast majority having high-speed internet. In the African American community, that number is at 52%. And if you break down the data even further, I believe currently 51% for Hispanic households, then you see a huge digital divide. I've even read studies that have said that smartphones are helping bridge the technology gap and the digital divide, because even individuals who may come from a lower socioeconomic background do tend to have access to a smartphone or a cell phone that will give them some form of connectivity. But, you know, beyond the digital divide, There are many children who literally during this time, due to a lack of parental guidance within the home, families that have multiple children that may all need access at the same time. You know, our local school systems are being forced to distribute Chromebooks to ensure that there is internet access. So it's a very, for us, it's a very frightening time because we understand the implications of placing children within a traditional classroom environment, but we also understand that there is the potential that there will be some children who may be left behind. So on the front end, we here in DeKalb are doing everything possible. Last week, I had a town hall where we had over 1,700 people join to talk about returning to school, how to utilize technology, where to go to find the student syllabus. And also, we are actually working with United Way as well as several local senior centers to provide secondary support to parents who are absent from home during the day, who have children that actually need assistance to ensure that they are engaged in digital learning. So there's a lot of things that has to be done in order for us to be successful.
If you had a chance to talk to the President of the United States about schools reopening, what would you ask him about this decision?
If I had a chance to ask the president a question concerning the schools reopening, my question would simply be why? When we look at where we are, if you talk to anyone, medical profession, Dr. Fossey has been very clear. Our departments of health has been very clear. We are at a critical state. What I fear from the reopening of schools and also the data that clearly indicates that at this point, the greatest rise in COVID cases are amongst our young people. They are extremely hard and it's to socially distance them. So what you're going to see is a resurgence, I believe, in the next 3 to 4 months of known COVID cases. And the implications of that will be tremendous for us because we are still at a very fragile state in terms of trying to flatten the curve when we are seeing the cases rise. Here in Georgia, along our coast, the Golden Isles, Brunswick, Georgia, Savannah, about a month ago, there were no empty hospital beds. These are the scenarios that we don't want to see. And if we are having that experience at this time, independent of opening our schools, sending children in, then I'm very fearful of what we will see once our schools reopen and we carry on business as usual, when we clearly have the resources on the federal level to ensure that every child has access to Chromebooks as well as internet. Here in DeKalb, we received $125 million in CARES funds. I think it's time that the allocation is made on the federal level because there's no way they do not understand the implications of opening our schools.
So important. What you just said is so very important. Lorraine Cochran-Johnson, DeKalb County Commissioner there in Georgia, lovely Atlanta. Thank you for being a part of the show today.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me, and we're never at a loss for conversations. I look forward to us, speaking again soon.
And we will. We'll continue to do that. Wishing you nothing but the best. God bless you. We're back with more after this. Welcome back to the program. So joining me now is Dr. Eric Westman. He is from Duke University. And Duke University developed a simple, low-cost technique to actually visualize the effectiveness different face coverings or masks on droplet emissions during normal wear. And that's been something that a lot of people want to talk about because they're wondering, do the masks really protect them and safeguard them from other people walking on the streets or just out and about casually? And Doc, you're here with us now. How does this work? And this testing, how valuable is it to people understanding that masks can and do safeguard lives?
Yes, thank you for having me. The study we did was a fairly simple one. It looked to see whether we actually did emit particles when we speak. So we really were looking at just people speaking. And it's true. We emit these particles you can't see when you're just speaking. But the laser beam system in a box picks up the particles, and you can actually see them and then analyze them. So the system that was put together was very simple. Anyone can recreate it, with some training in using lasers, but it's very inexpensive. And we were faced with trying to evaluate these homemade masks, ones that were being made by volunteers in the community. So this is really one of the first studies to see if these community homemade masks really worked at all. And we found that some did and some didn't.
So what's your best scenario from the testing in order to give people and advise people the best kind of mask to wear when they're out and about, whether it's for recreation or whether it's actually going to work and being in company with people wherever they are?
Well, of course, the tools we have, the social distancing, hand washing, don't forget those. But if you're out and about around other people, you want to wear a mask that's effective. And there's a lot of other research on the hospital grade masks. We included them too. These are called the N95, or the surgical masks that you see out and about, the blue with the ear loops. Those worked really well. I mean, they were the best, clearly. But if you're making your own cotton 2 or 3 layer masks, they worked really well too, at about 80% effectiveness compared to the others, which is really good. The other thing to keep in mind is it doesn't have to be perfect when you're out in the community. You're not exposed like in a room with someone. The hospital folks need those really, really good ones, and we can use the other community use of the cotton ones works really well to reduce the spread of disease.
Now, has the university embarked on not only advising and recommending the kinds of masks that people should wear, has the university devised a plan to actually start making masks at all?
Well, our study was a preliminary one using tools that we had around the lab at a time when we couldn't really study much. And it gives a good idea of the masks, how well they work, but it's really not a definitive study to say one is definitely better than another. We want other research to be done. And one of the curious things that we were surprised to find is that bandanas didn't work very well. I mean, they worked at about a 50% rate compared to the really, really good ones, the N95s. And then these 1 layer neck gaiters or neck fleeces, they're called, they didn't work at all. And it might even have made things worse by making the particles smaller. So if it's true that the disease spreads better with smaller particles, these fleece things that people wear might not be a good idea.
And Dr. Westerman, one of the things that I heard one doctor tell me on this show is that if we make a mask, we should perhaps use a HEPA filter and in some kind of way put that into the bandana in order to protect ourselves from droplets. Have you found that in your study, that kind of material, does it work?
We didn't study that specifically. I think that's a great idea to extend to other types of fabrics and adding filters in. We didn't study that ourselves, but it makes sense that it would be better. I mean, I think to your question, you want to wear the best mask you can.
Yeah.
And if you can't get one of the best ones, because the hospitals need them in certain areas, be assured that the ones that you can make on your own do work really well. And, I'm assuming soon there'll be a glut of masks everywhere, and the ones that have been tested, the surgical ones and N95s are best, but it's okay to use the other ones now.
We'll be back with more of the program after this. And what are your concerns about children going back to school, or for that matter, college students going back into an environment where they're closely associated with each other? Although a lot of schools have chosen to be virtual and have virtual campuses. But for those schools that have chosen to actually have a physical presence between teachers and students and faculty members and staff, wearing a mask is essential, is it not?
Well, our study points out the fact that just speaking spreads particles. Now, we didn't prove that there are viruses on the particles that then infect other people, but it's logical, because if you put hamsters in cages with just masks between them, they actually spread the disease in a research study out of Hong Kong. So as we're learning more about COVID-19, it's very contagious. So I think going back to schools, having some sort of face covering is essential to prevent the droplet spread, which is a possible source of contamination or contagiousness between children and children and the teachers.
It's a lot to think about when you're going back to school or just reopening states so that our economy can get functioning again. I realize that it's a very important thing for us to get back to some semblance of normalcy, albeit it might be quite abnormal. But wearing a mask is, I think, essential for the unprecedented times in which we live.
Well, it seemed logical to me, although I'm trained in medicine. So I went through training where I was in the operating room, scrubbed in, wore a mask. I mean, it was just part of procedures that you do. So as I wear a mask if I'm out and about around other people who I don't know, they may have the disease. And that was the other concerning thing we've learned, that you can spread this disease without being sick yourself. So the asymptomatic spread is a big concern, especially when you check children going to school just with a temperature as they come in. They may not actually have any symptoms and they might still be sick. So, but I kind of look around the world at what other countries are doing, and many countries have been successful at containing the virus using the measures we have without vaccines. So I think it's possible for us. I think masks are an important component based on the study we did. Just speaking can spread particles.
It's a fascinating study. It's eye-opening, and it's actually illuminating because it actually puts the truth right out there. You can see the droplets just from people talking and how we pass just our own viruses or any type of transmission on. And that's something that was very important, because it's been stated by the president that children won't transmit or transport viruses. And that's your experiment shows that that's not true, that we actually do transmit viruses or any kind of droplets by speaking and laughing and talking.
Yeah. And the idea that just loud children screaming and yelling might spread particles more, that's been well worked out way before our research. We added the idea that different face coverings and ones you make at home actually can be effective. That's reassuring to me. The surprise in our work was that maybe some masks could make things worse. If you're yelling through one of these single layer neck fleeces on a football field, for example, this might not be a good idea.
So what's your best recommendation for those of us who wear masks and really value wearing them so that we can take care of ourselves and people we come in contact with?
Well, I think you want one that's comfortable so that you're not irritated by wearing it. Sometimes ties around the back are more comfortable than the ear loops. And you want to, of course, have ones that's stylish, that you're comfortable with, if that's your line of work. And I've seen all whole range of Superman masks to elegant ones for ballroom, kinds of things. So, but you want one that's effective, that blocks the particles from coming in and from going out, to protect other people too.
Well, being a fan of Duke University, I'll try to get a mask that says Blue Devils.
I'm sure they exist by now. I don't have one.
All right. Dr. Eric Westman from Duke University, a great institution. Thank you for being a part of the program and enlightening us with this great study and research that Duke University has provided for all of us to wear better masks.
Thank you.
All right. That's Dr. Eric Westman. As one doctor has always told me, mask up and COVID down. That's the important thing to do. We're coming back with much more to the show after this. And welcome back to the program. So it gives me great pleasure and delight to introduce someone that I have known and loved for almost 10 years now, although she doesn't show it. It's Monica Watkins. And Monica, it's so good to see you. Thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you so much. It's such a blessing and such a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you so much for having me again.
Yeah, let me tell people what you do, and no one can do it better than you, but you are the president and founder of Beauty for Freedom. And all of that came as a result of your years as working as a top model in the New York area. And you've been all around the world as a model. And right now in the midst of COVID-19, modeling is kind of hard to do right now. But
Absolutely.
The one thing that you've always kept going was Beauty for Freedom. And it addresses such a tremendous need in terms of preventing human trafficking. Tell me how you got into this.
Well, actually, it's kind of a long story, but it started out with work that I was doing after the earthquake in Haiti in 2011. So I went on a mission trip as an art teacher, and I started doing a lot of different missions in Haiti, and I met my first victim of sex trafficking. And, later on doing research, found that during, earthquakes and monsoons and different natural disasters, traffickers kind of swoop in and take advantage, primarily of youth, primarily of young girls, and primarily to sell for sex trafficking. And that's what had happened to her. She had lost her entire family in the earthquake, and so I decided that I wanted to come back to the United States and just kind of really learn about what human trafficking, or as some people might call it, modern day slavery, was really all about. And so I started volunteering with a couple of amazing organizations, and their founders, empowered, powerful women, kind of mentored me and taught me through the years. And after that, we wanted to found our own organization, Beauty for Freedom. And we started right there in the beauty and the fashion industries with a group of us that came together with that one united mission, which is to eradicate human trafficking in this lifetime. And so we've been doing that, and we've been working in different countries and in the United States, working with survivors, at-risk youth, young victims primarily of labor trafficking and sex trafficking. And we've been able to work with over 3,000 at-risk youth and survivors all over the world. So, it's been a really, really powerful journey. I just have to say, I feel blessed to be able to live a life of service in this way.
I commend you, because I know the work that you've done. I've been on some of the functions, attended some of them, participated in some of them, of how you have been getting out there, raising awareness, raising necessary funds to help so many children throughout the world. And you've traveled to those places, but you don't just go there to save and rescue the children. You also go there to teach them art and photography and media work. How did you get into that as well?
Well, I'm an artist. I've been an artist for many, many years, and I know how art has, at some points in my life, actually saved my life. It helped me to heal from past trauma that I suffered personally. And I've been through art therapy for many years. And, I decided I wanted us to use this platform, to use that platform of the creative therapeutic arts and skills training to be a really big part of our platform. And it's proven itself time and time again to be healing, to be a conversation starter, to be a narrative driven activity that can help particularly youth be able to have a cathartic experience in regards to their own traumatic experiences without having to say a word. Yeah. It's a huge blessing. It's a huge tool that we've used to empower, to uplift, and to help these survivors to continue in their healing process.
It's so good. And Monica, stay with me. On the other side of the break, I want to talk to you more about you, because you're the leader of Beauty for Freedom. And so many people have converged on you and joined you to help you do this. And even in the midst of COVID-19, you're still doing it. But I want to talk to you because there's a great story there. We'll be back with more Monica Watkins after this. Welcome back to the program. So I'm really excited because I'm talking to one of my good buddies who I haven't talked to in a while, and it's so good to catch up with her. But the one fundamental thing that Monica Watkins is always about is saving and helping the youth of the world. And you do that through your wonderful organization, Beauty for Freedom, which we've talked about. And we can't say enough about you being on the front lines to stop human trafficking. Are other women, noteworthy women, joining in that fight? Because you've talked to some powerful women out there.
Absolutely. We've been so blessed, kind of first and foremost coming from the fashion industry as a model, now a retired model. I've had so many people from the fashion industry that have, and actually models that I've worked with over the years that have joined hands with me and have supported our projects. We have lots of artists and creatives that have donated their time. These projects wouldn't be possible without them. We've had celebrity support and engagement as well. And some people come for a season, and some people have been with us from the beginning until this very day. So I'm just really grateful. I'm grateful for every moment. I'm grateful for every person that's donated their time. Many people have donated their funds, and people just donate their hearts and souls to this movement. It's just, been a very humbling experience to see that.
Monica, how do we help? How do we contact you or Beauty for Freedom to be able to donate, or when we get through this COVID pandemic, to join you in so many concerns that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can start off by visiting our website, which is beautyforfreedom.org, all spelled out. You can email me personally to, send your requests in for information. We have resources to share. We can actually refer survivors as well to resources in every state. So you can also email me at info@beautyforfreedom.org. You can also follow us on social media. On Instagram, we're at Beauty for Freedom, and the same on Facebook as well. So anything in any way, great or small, that you want to contribute, we are here for it, and we're so grateful. And, feel blessed to have the opportunity to share our story. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I've got to talk to you about you, the woman that you've become, because it is a remarkable journey. I seem to recall a story from you with your walking through the mall in Houston, Texas, at the age of 16 and being recognized by someone who said, you've got to be a model, or you at least need to start doing that. Tell me about that, please.
Yeah, so it's so funny because I was really focused on basketball. That was like my number one thing. I was like, I'm going to get better. I'm going to make varsity this year. It was the thing I was focused on. But my mother was always telling me that I should, she was, she always told me I was beautiful. And I'm like, yeah, right. She's just saying that because she's my mom. She actually has to think I'm cute and beautiful and all that because I'm her child. But I never really believed her. And so we went to the mall. We were shopping for school clothes because, I was growing so fast at that point. I was like, we had to shop a lot. So we were at the mall and they were doing a scouting event. And they pulled me and my mom over and they invited us to go and meet this modeling agency in Houston called Page Parks. And my mom was like, you should really do it. And I was like, well, I mean, shouldn't I be focusing on basketball? She's like, you can do both, you can focus on basketball and we can just go and see what they have to say, So we went to the agency. We actually signed up for modeling classes. And the first class that I had that evening, someone canceled on a modeling job and they came into our class and they picked me out of the group and they said, could you fill in for this model? I'd never done anything like that in my life. My mom and I jumped in the car, we went to the shoot and it was so much fun. And that was like my first paycheck.
Yeah.
I hardly had made it through the class. And from then it was just like the rest is history. A few months later, I ended up in New York and it was just a wild ride. And it was like a 27-year career.
Wow.
I'm so blessed. I was able to travel the world, meet incredible people. A lot of times when I first started traveling, my mom went with me. So we got to travel together. We were in Paris, we were in London, we had a ball, I loved it when my mom would travel with me.
And we'll be back right after this. What I love about you, though, is that your parents raised you so well there in Texas. They taught you all about life and all about civil rights, and you've never given up the struggle for bringing equality, especially to girls. And as you know, one of the reasons why I asked you about your personal life and your journey to become a model is because there are a lot of little Black girls out there who will look at you and say, maybe I can be like she is, someone who models, but someone who also has the wherewithal to understand that we can help people in the plight of human trafficking, especially when there are 64,000 missing Black girls in America.
Yes.
And it's not, police sometimes attribute it to runaways, but the bottom line is they are missing. And it's heroes and sheroes like you who are out there trying to make sure that they're not caught up in human trafficking. And for that, I admire you and respect you and thank you.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I was just reading an article today that stated that only 0.04% of human trafficking cases ever get reported. So if you can, it's almost like a misdiagnosis, right? You say we have 64,000 young Black girls that are missing in this country, then you can only guess at how many of those young girls have been sold into human trafficking or modern day slavery. And this is 2020, and we're still talking about that. This, travesty of humanity that's been happening since the beginning of time. So we really have to come together and we have to support an end to this. And it's going to take all of us. I was just having that conversation with a friend on social media today. It's not just me and it's not just you and it's not just every other person. It actually is going to take every single person throughout the world to say, we won't stand for this anymore. And we're going to do something about it.
Monica, thank you for keeping us aware, but also not just sitting back and keeping us aware, but actually getting engaged in the fight. So this platform is always a part of yours. I always share it with you anytime.
I'm so grateful. And I love the stories that you bring to light, and you bring so much light to the world, I'm grateful for you. And I know everyone else that you've touched their life is also super grateful for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Monica. Much love to you. Stay safe, stay well. And I look forward to the time we can actually sit down and break bread together again.
I wait for that. I can't wait for that. God bless you so much, Kelly.
She is Monica Watkins. And before I go, the background is happening. You made that yourself?
Like all of our, so we have a big project in Ghana. We've worked with, at this point, over 1,000 youth in Ghana throughout the years we've been there. And so we have lots of fabric left over from Ghana, and it just keeps my heart, there. And it keeps my mind on what we should be doing. Just having this fabric here, I feel like I'm there with them,
All right. I've got to put it in order. Okay. Monica Watkins, love you. Always be a friend to this show. God bless. All right. We're back with more after this. Welcome back. I want to thank all of the guests who appeared on tonight's program, and I especially want to thank Monica Watkins for the great work she's doing to stop human trafficking through her campaign and her organization called Beauty for Freedom. Certainly, that leads me to my final observation. Hopefully, we are all righted, ignited, and united to keep spreading love, freedom, and peace. Good night.
All aboard! Come on, all aboard.
Let me break it down for you like this.
The rhythm of love is easy to find if you're listening. The color of light isn't red, black, or white, but it's crimson. We all bleed the same. If you don't feel the groove, it's alright. Just give it time, give it time. Come on, y'all. Get on board. Mankind won't survive if our hearts beat inside a hateful rhythm. You see, love isn't bought, but comes with a price of forgiveness, and we all bleed the same. Yeah. If you don't feel it now, just wait. It's coming on, the love train. Just give it time, give it time. Get on board. That means you and you and you
on the love train.
get on board.
All creeds and colors,
Brothers
all sisters and
and
brothers
sisters,
on the love train.
get on board the love train. Everyone's invited. We're all united on the love train. Get on board. All creeds and colors, my sisters and brothers, get on board on the love train. Woo-hoo! Yeah, it's alright. Just give it time. Keep on marching on.